Alright everybody, welcome back to another Xvault Gaming video. Xvault here, and today what I want to go over is some more findings and some more interviews that recently came to light. That of like Jim Ryan from PlayStation and their side of things in regards to the whole Activision Blizzard deal and that going through, and if that's a good process or if it was a good acquisition, and talking a bit more about Game Pass and if that's a value and what's to come for that type of subservice and if it's a thing that we should be invested in or not. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump to it. Alright, so like I was saying, what I have is some interesting findings here as of recent due to the Tokyo Game Show in regards to a lot of interviews and everything going out. So that kind of highlights some things and gets the, corporate figureheads out there and stating more and more. So in this response, we have something from CEO Jim Ryan, President and CEO rather, for PlayStation. So bear with me while we go over some of this here because it's very interesting and a lot of truth of what he has to say. He states, I can say with a very high degree of certainty that Microsoft has tried the first path and it did not work at all. That has driven them to make the large acquisition. I talked to all the publishers and they unanimously do not like Game Pass because it is value destructive. Not only on an individual title basis, but also or an industry level. The recent number of subscribers that Microsoft announced on January was 25 million. I'm sure everyone has their own views on this, but I personally was expecting a larger number given all the money they have spent. We have close to 50 million PlayStation Plus subscribers. We believe we have a meaningful subscription service. So everything but the end of that little piece, PlayStation does have a meaningful subscription service, but again, I am subscribed to it. Like I mentioned in multiple videos, I didn't do it because I thought I should, or that I thought I would utilize everything. When they offered it, and to all the PlayStation Plus members at the time, they gave you a crazy good discount to not only bump up your tier to extra or premium, either one, but they gave you this phenomenal deal that lasted for the rest of your subscription. If you were bought out for PS Plus to play your online games and so on and so forth, it was just, why would you turn the deal down kind of thing. But like I said, before we go over this more, like I've mentioned, I don't use the service. It's very rare. Usually I'm playing the games that I have bought personally because I'm getting more value out of those and knowing what games I want to play. It just makes sense. I think a lot of people, like I said, look at Xbox, look at the, message around Game Pass, and they throw in that keyword of value and savings and value over and over and over. So it conditions the audience, and that's what commercialism is and does that to the audience because they try to entice you, right? And for better or worse. And a lot of the times it works. That's what marketing is, advertisements is. They get you to pique that interest. They like to, you share those keywords of savings and value, but ultimately every person is different. Again, like I mentioned multiple times, the subscription market for any type of medium right now, whether it be movies, TVs, HBO Max, Starz, Hulu, all that stuff. And then we're looking at Game Pass, we're looking at PlayStation Plus, we're looking at Nintendo Online, we're looking at so many things. When Stadia was a thing, that was another thing. There's just so many subscription services that it's oversaturated. So are you paying for every single one, right? Why were we okay with paying for subscription services previously, right? With like HBO Max and Hulu and all that. Well, because it was cutting the contract stuff. You're paying month to month and you're getting the stuff you want in a way a la carte. So it makes sense. But now with all these subscription services, they add up and you're paying what you were for your satellite or cable bills, right? It's just, we're back to square one. And it was, foreseen essentially to state that yes, we're going to make a full circle here. It's not going to, the consumer's just going to get the best deals ever and it's going to be a flat deal and on and on and on and on. However, moving past that, that's just what I kind of want to bring up again. There's other pieces. So like he said, he doesn't 100% agree with any of that. And I agree. I think that Microsoft has to have more than 25 million subscribers at this point. And I'm sure they do a little bit more, but they are having to hit a certain amount by an X amount a year. I mentioned this in the previous video. Go check it out. If they don't hit that, supposedly they might end up pulling from the market and selling off all the assets or whatever the case may be. So just kind of another person and piece all over social media and posting this stuff. Question here. The Game Pass business model appears to have some challenges, and Microsoft appears to be losing a lot of money on it. Because the AAA publishers spend $100 million or more on the developing titles, they are happy to sell it for $70 on PS5. The subscription model is more challenging for them. Given the environment, will Microsoft need to provide minimum revenue guarantees if they want those titles on Game Pass, or do they need to go out and buy more assets like Activision to put on their platform? Are those the two options for Microsoft when trying to gain critical mass and support from the AAA publisher for Game Pass? It's crazy. And that was, essentially the question that we got the answer to for Jim Ryan, right? You would think that the numbers at this point, with how much that Microsoft is investing into Game Pass, would be $50 million at this point. They've been sitting at 25 million subscribers for 6+ years. I mean, you're not seeing any growth. If there's not a growth of X amount of subscribers for acquiring Activision Blizzard with Call of Duty, namely, I mean, you got a ton of other IPs, obviously, but the main one that's going to be doing stuff or should be moving numbers is Call of Duty. Now, again, they're not going to throw that on Game Pass right away, so it's going to be a few years before that is on Game Pass. It's going to be a few years before you're going to see things happen. There's still contracts to be put out. They still have to put them out with a parity clause to other, competitors and stuff like that. They made a deal with Nintendo. They had to make the deal with PlayStation. That was part of the agreement. All that stuff there. So it's just crazy. So. And then Jim Ryan goes on to say, hey, we spent $3.6 billion on Bungie. And he feels that there's way more value than if they bought Activision for $69 billion. And that's just the facts there as well. People are not super happy with Destiny and the state of Destiny, and they're not happy with certain things about it. But there's more to Bungie. They're coming out with this game that I had no clue of, called Marathon. I did cover this a couple times, especially when it was announced. I still don't know a lot about it, but apparently this was a great game, and they feel like Bungie can do something really phenomenal with this, and it's going to be a games as a service game. I'm not huge on games as a service games, essentially, but it's supposed to be phenomenal. I think there's a lot of talent with Bungie still. I think there's a lot going on, and they have a lot of talent and know-how for the infrastructure when it comes to doing games as a service, right? They've been successful. Is crazy as Destiny has been, they're still doing well, love it or hate it, right? Again, I'm not a super huge Destiny player. I always thought it controlled and played very well, but it's the overall aesthetic of it that kind of made me fall out of it. And I don't like the huge puzzles on the raid portions and so on and so forth. Just kind of really puts me off in a lot of ways. I just want to go in there, guns a-blazing. You can have a little bit of puzzle-esque stuff, but when it stops the ebb and flow of it, that's when I kind of bounce out. But that's not to say that they're not talented people and they haven't been successful, and the franchise has been very successful and a lot of fans that are still playing to this day, right? And that's just the way it is. But ultimately, the other piece of this is they don't foresee, Phil Spencer also comes out and states, look, with a quick interview speaking to a Japanese publication off the back of the Tokyo Game Show, Phil Spencer was asked about the future of the Xbox Game Pass, specifically as to whether it would see another price hike in the near future. He beat around the bush a little bit, but ultimately he stressed that a price rise is inevitable. And if you didn't notice, it was also hiked a little bit earlier this year. When you're acquiring a $69 billion acquisition, it is going to get time, and it's going to take time to see profits back from that. You're getting a lot, but you spent a ton. It's going to take time. Whether you have Call of Duty or not, it's going to take time. And, so it will. But again, what the main factor here that has to be weighed in is, are they going to increase those Game Pass subscriptions? And not just by a little bit, but by a lot. Like I mentioned, it's been 6+ years. at this point, and they pretty much stagnated. And Phil Spencer himself has stated this multiple times. It is stagnated at 25 million subscribers. I think a lot of people are, and this is the reason behind why I think so. It's stagnated because you can put whatever you want on this service. Again, it circles back around to what I mentioned in the beginning. The market is oversaturated with subscription services. Yes, you are getting a value, so to speak, at a certain point, right? But what is that value? Are you okay? Are you a gamer out there that's casual enough where you're okay putting in 2 to 3 hours per game and moving on? And you're hitting all the games in the library and making it a value to you? Whether it's day one Game Pass for Starfield or whatever the case is, doesn't make sense. If you're playing Starfield, a very long game, that's going to take a lot of hours, especially if you want to get everything out of it and you're really enjoying that game, then it makes sense that you're not renting the game monthly, right? Even though there's a value there, savings there, so to speak, depending who you are again and how you're utilizing the service, it makes sense that you just outright buy those games. I think folks are really starting to come to fruition, even without my help here, as thinking, okay, I think it makes sense. I'm only playing Madden every year. I'm only playing Call of Duty every year. That's still only $60, $70 a year, which, if that's all you're mainly playing and spending most of your time on, it makes sense to own those games. I don't care if they're in a sub-service or not. You never fully own the game if you're renting the game. People still like to go back to previous Call of Duties and play certain ones for whatever reason. Their servers are open for a lot of years. And then, not to mention, if for some reason you're playing the previous year and you're waiting a year later, it's going to be on discount. It's going to be on sale. So you're saving yourself even more money. And again, you own the game and you're not paying monthly for a subscription service. That's the main takeaway here. Is that value there for you? And I know I've mentioned this in many previous videos ago, and I just didn't want to beat the horse over the head with it, but it's a fact. You gotta really look at yourself. Is there truly value? Yes, day one Game Pass games. And then you gotta think of the quality that's affecting. Are you casual? Are you hardcore? Do you barely dive into games? We're all gonna fit a different category, and there's no right or wrong for whatever category we fit into or what we choose. But you do want to take a moment and realize what you're doing instead of throwing that money out of the way. I mean, we've all been guilty of doing that, so there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to take a step back and realize what we're doing. I've done it myself with subscribing to too many subscription services for TV and movies, and I have to back off. I'm like, well, do I want to watch this? Is there anything even on there? Or you forget you're subscribing to it in general, or you think you're going to get to it and you're not, and that money just goes out the window. So the smarter you are, the smarter that you plan about it and you go about it, you're going to be happier. You're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to get your best value and savings by buying things, if it makes sense when we're coming back to the game side here. Same thing if you're watching the same type of series or TV shows, right? If you're watching them and subscribing to them, you're never really owning them, right? So if you do find yourself watching the same stuff or playing the same stuff over and over, it makes sense to maybe just buy it digitally, buy it physically, steelbooks, collector's editions, whatever you want to do. It makes sense just to go ahead and buy those outright. So again, there's a lot on the table here. Just wanted to bring that to fruition. Jim Ryan chiming in. He's not in that position of president and CEO of PlayStation because he's sitting there in his mom's basement making predictions. He's there because he's been making things work. He's been making things happen. He's been making sure there's been an increase in revenue and profits. He knows what he's doing. So when he comes out and states in these interviews, he's not just beating around the bush there. He's being honest. He's like, yeah. And it's not just because it's his side of the business. He's like, if it truly was, and it's not that it's a bad acquisition, Microsoft had to do something. But when he sits there and goes, the value wasn't there for us, that's why we weren't going to, I don't think Sony could have afforded that. But they could have afforded different ways and been a little more aggressive. But he knows deep down, he's like, I don't know about that. I think that's a last ditch effort for Microsoft trying to make those Game Pass subscriber numbers grow, and it is. So it'll be interesting to see if that does push the numbers, but again, keep in mind, then it makes sense a lot of the time to own and just outright buy the games, and it supports the devs a lot more. We'll go in another video about how much devs get for putting their games on Game Pass. It costs Microsoft a lot of money. They do get a good helping heap, a bunch of money, but it helps them out more. If you want to support your hobby, it helps them out more just to outright buy their game, so keep that in mind as well. So without me going on and on and on, I just wanted to share all that information there with everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around. All that. We are at 699 subscribers out of 1,000, so we're 301 subscribers away from that 1,000 goal. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. I do appreciate every like, every comment. It helps out the algorithm. If you haven't already and you have seen the videos, definitely consider subscribing, helping out a small content creator like myself. Again, so appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we will see you next time on the next Xvault gaming video. And until then, take care.